New country artist Corey Kent is one of the brightest stars rising out of Music City. The Oklahoma native scored his first #1 with Wild as Her, and his brand new LP Blacktop is looking to further cement his status. From opening shows for Jason Aldean to co-headlining shows with fellow up-and-comer Bailey Zimmerman, Kent shows no signs of slowing down. We had the opportunity to speak to Kent about his debut project and more. Before listening to our chat, be sure to subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up for more country music news, entertainment, updates, and recommendations. Before talking about his present-day projects and success, Ken told us about his background and how he got started playing and writing music.
I started playing music in the Tulsa scene when I was really a kid. Kind of got the opportunity to be in a Western swing band, and that gave me thousands of hours of stage time. We got to open for, the Oak Ridge Boys and Roy Clark and a bunch of country music legends. And that's really where I cut my teeth, and I got to see kind of the behind the curtain of how live music worked. And when I was 16, the turning point for me was the band was kind of dissolving because I was the youngest member in the band for 5 years. And basically at a crossroads in my life of like, okay, the band's done, and now I either need to figure out how to completely restart as a solo artist or just go back to being a regular kid and play football and wrestle and all the stuff that I was interested in and doing. And that was the night that Willie Nelson came through town, and I ended up on stage playing a Western swing song with Willie. And that was the night that I was like, okay, clearly I'm supposed to be doing this. So I worked pretty hard, graduated high school a year early so that I could move to Tennessee and just start writing songs, learn that craft from some of the best in the world that lived here. So, moved out to Tennessee and, did the whole sleep in your car, crash on friends' couches thing until I could afford to actually live here, and just worked my way up, started writing songs, and eventually ended up with a contract to do that, and thought that it was my dream to write songs for other people. And then after I landed that, what was quote unquote my dream job, I found out that that wasn't what I wanted to do at all. I wanted to write songs for me, and I wanted to travel across the country and play them. I wanted to get back to live music. So that's when I picked up my wife and my little girl, my family, and moved to Texas and really focused on, hitting the road and just taking matters into our own hands and playing as much live music as we could.
Kent also shares his musical influences, which range from country legends like Garth Brooks to rock and roll and blues acts. He also points out how they shaped his own sound.
So as far as inspiration, I grew up mainly, I'd say the most prevalent artist in the house was Garth Brooks. Like I remember vividly as a kid, we had that huge TV that was like 4 feet deep that I remember watching Garth live in Dublin. And it's just burned into my memory of seeing a guy from where I'm from in Oklahoma on another side of the world, sprinting from one side of the stage to the other, and tens of thousands of people just screaming his songs. And that was like my rock and roll hero as a kid, because he was somebody that was tangible. Like that guy grew up right down the road from where we grew up, and he did it. So why can't we? Along with like the music that I started really finding myself, I think country music growing up in Oklahoma is like what everybody would tell you to listen to, but rock and roll and blues music was the stuff that I found on my own that nobody told me that I should like. And I found like Boston's first record, and found the Hotel California record, and got into like Clapton, and trying to think of who else, like Dear Mr. Fantasy, which was like one of my favorite songs as a kid, which is weird to be an 8th grader on the back of a school bus listening to Dear Mr. Fantasy at the time. But I loved that stuff. That was stuff that I fell in love with. And so I think that you can hear a lot of that. And then as I kind of got into my high school years, I found bands like the Kings of Leon and Turnpike Troubadours. And so when I think of high school and college, those are kind of the soundtracks to that period of time. And 16 for me was also the Chief record by Eric Church. And so there's kind of a culmination of all of those things. I love that, Eric's writing is just like one layer deeper than the traditional country stuff that you would hear on the radio. And so I feel like I've really connected with that and tried to learn as much as I can from writers like him and Casey Beathard, and but also I love the production of, the Kings of Leon records, and how all that stuff comes from the heart. You don't even necessarily have to understand what they're saying to feel what they're portraying. And so between the heart that's from the rock and roll music that I love, and the blues music, and then the storytelling aspect of country music, I feel like all of those artists and influences are weaved into this Blacktop record.
In mid-May, Kent scored his first #1 on country radio with his track Wild as Her. He explains how it's changed his life for the better.
Yeah, Wild as Her has been a life-changing song. When I went into the studio to record this song, I was still working at a pavement company. And that is part of why the record's called Blacktop. It is a piece of work that started in one place and transitioned me from working at a pavement company to being on the road full time. And that's the other half of why this record is called Blacktop. And Wild as Her really was like the cornerstone song that made all that possible. It has 180'd my life. It's allowed me to help take care of my family. I've got a wife and 3 kids at home, and I get to do something that I love every day. And when I moved to Texas, the world shut down, and music was no longer a viable way for me to take care of my family. And that's why I went to work for that pavement company. And that's, just a season of life where I didn't know if music was ever going to be a way that I could, make a living anymore. And so for Wild as Her to, have done what it's done, and to still be growing, and to be climbing the charts and top 5 at radio, like it's not something I ever expected, but it is something that I believed if we just kept going and I kept my head down and I kept working hard, that eventually opportunity would knock and I'd be ready for it. And that's what I feel like that song was just putting in years and years and years of work. And then finally the opportunity presented itself, and the gates opened and the world opened back up, and we could go play live music, and we were just going to be off to the races because we were hungry for it.
Despite being a proficient songwriter, Wild as Her was actually written by Kelly Archer, Brett Tyler, and country star Morgan Wallen. Kent opens up about what he looks for when recording a song he didn't pen himself.
Well, first off, I think that the healthiest songwriting community is one where the greatest songwriters in the world don't have to be writing in the room with an artist to get a cut. I think that some of the greatest country songs of all time came from a songwriter writing a song by himself or with another friend about real life, not worried about who they had to pitch it to or who they had to get in the room to get it a real shot. And, for me as a writer, even before I was really an artist, I felt frustrated by the fact that if I wasn't if I didn't personally know an artist, it didn't feel like my songs were ever going to have a shot. And so for me, when I did become this artist that had, some level of platform, I wanted people to know that if they wrote a great song, we were going to listen to it. And if it was better than what I was writing, then we were going to put it on the record. And to me, that's what makes up the best songwriting community. That's what's made up some of the best country artists and writers of all time, the Dean Dillon, George Strait combos. Like, those guys let the best song win, and look at what their careers have done as a result. So that's the first way that I just view outside songs. And then secondly, what I look for in an outside song is really, it always comes down to authenticity. It's like, that can be a hit and everybody in the room can agree that, yeah, that's a #1 hit. That's a smash. But is it for me? Is it a smash for me? Am I the most believable person out there that can sing that song? And can I make the fans feel whatever I feel when I hear that? And if the answer is no, then I don't cut it, even if it sounds like a hit. And so I've listened to, at this point, thousands of songs and cut, maybe one handful, like literally can count on one hand the amount of songs that I didn't write that I've cut. But I am passionate about cutting outside songs because I think there are so many out there that right now are not going to see the light of day, that absolutely deserve to be out in the world. And there are artists that can authentically deliver them.
Another single from his album is Man of the House, which Kent wrote about his mom. Writing the track acted as therapy for Kent and has resonated with many of his listeners.
Man of the House was the only song I've ever written that I had to step out of the room multiple times to regather myself. An unintentionally therapeutic song. It was me kind of wrestling with some stuff that I've never put into words before. I've never been able to articulate the way that I felt growing up, and I've never really thought about it. You just, life happens and you move on, and you grow, and you kind of put some of that stuff out of your mind. So for me, it was just a nice way to get these feelings that I've had for a long time out. And I never anticipated that it would be even really a song that we released. It was just more for me, and people on our team started going, hey, actually that's my story. I relate to that. Enough people said that you're like, maybe we should see what people think about this, right? And so we kind of put a teaser out, and people just started responding with their life stories. I mean, it wasn't us asking, hey, how does this relate to you? It was just like, here's a song that I wrote about me and my mom. And the response was just novels of people's real life stories just connecting with this song. That meant a lot to me because, one, it made me feel seen. It made me feel like, man, this wasn't just for me. This wasn't just a therapeutic exercise. This is how a ton of people feel, and they feel like nobody's put that into words for them to identify with. So it was a special song, and my dad and I, we got a great relationship now. We've rebuilt a lot over the years, and it's also really cool to kind of leave that. The way that we wrote it was very open-ended. Like, you'll never hear the dad actually mentioned in the song, and there's a real purpose behind that. And the purpose was we wanted anybody to be able to insert themselves into that song, whether their dad had passed away, whether their dad was just never in the picture at all, whether their dad was like my dad, and years later we rebuild and have a great friendship. Like, there's a reason that was left out, and the reason was so many people could identify with it.
Both Wild as Her and Man of the House are all featured on Blacktop. When talking about the record in full, Kent discusses the story he's trying to tell with the record and what he aims to achieve with it.
So this Blacktop record, really, to me, the goal is to be an individual, is to express something that's unique to me. When you hear these songs on this record, a lot of them are autobiographical, and I believe that I've created something that wouldn't be authentic if someone else sang it. And that's how I know it's authentic to me. That's really important to me in the, red dirt and Texas scene that I grew up in. Authenticity is the number one thing. You can have hit after hit after hit, but if nobody believes them, then where I'm from, it doesn't matter. I think a lot of times, especially country fans, like to put a box around an artist and think that they have them all figured out, right? Whether that's, this guy is the beach country guy, or this guy is the cowboy hat country guy. Well, for me, I feel like I have a lot of different layers, and hopefully this record does a good job of kind of breaking people's minds out of that box and going, okay, you can be a family man married with 3 kids, but also want to go 120 miles an hour on a motorcycle. And you can still want to go to a rock show and hold up a lighter and also be completely in love with your wife. I want people to expand their view of what people can be. It's not just this one thing that fits nicely in a box. It can be a lot of different elements that make up a person. I feel like some days you want to be life of the party, and some days you want to be chilling at home having a cup of coffee. And both of those things are okay. You don't have to be one all the time. And so this record is really dynamic. It means a lot to me personally. And also, I just wanted it to be a statement. I wanted it to be sonically something that didn't sound like anything else that you're going to hear on the radio. But also, I wanted them to feel like they all belonged on the radio. But I didn't want them to sound like anything else that hit the radio. So I feel like we've accomplished that. I'm excited for the record release. I also wanted to really embody the live show with this record, because at the end of the day, that's what I am. I'm a live musician. If I couldn't do live music, I wouldn't be in music at all. I love and live for those performances. And so really creating a record that played right into that live show and the goals that I have with that was a big thing for me, and creating the energy that comes with the live show and trying to capture that on the record was important, and I feel like we did that.
His song Something's Gonna Kill Me is one of his favorites on the LP, and he goes on to describe why the tune excites him like no other song has before.
First off, I feel like everybody says that, every song that they release is the most excited that they've been about a new song. For me, I don't think I've said that before. This truly is one of the most anticipated songs that I've had, because it's a chance. Like, we're taking a chance on this. It doesn't sound like anything else. The hook of the song comes from one of my favorite sayings, and the saying is, get busy living or get busy dying. And all that really means is, it's like a realization of your time down here on earth is pretty short, and everything comes with a risk. So you've got to figure out what risks are worth taking to you, and what gives you enjoyment, what makes you feel alive while you're here. And for me, some of those things are riding a motorcycle on a Sunday afternoon, or smoking a cigar with some of my best friends on a back porch. And there are people that can look at those things and go, hey man, those things could kill you. Yeah, they could, and so could driving to work. So what's worth it to you, and what brings you that enjoyment? And so this song is kind of rebellious in nature. It's, again, breaking outside of the box. It's being unapologetically yourself and doing the things that bring you enjoyment. And I just think that all around, just sonically, subject matter wise, identity wise, all of this is unique. And because of that, it's kind of nerve wracking. So I'm not just excited, I'm also like, man, how is this going to be received? And so that's why I say it's the most anticipated release I've ever had.
Corey Kent's brand new debut album, Blacktop, is out now on all streaming services. We hope you enjoyed listening to our conversation with the Rising Country Act. Be sure to subscribe to our channel for more interviews from your favorite country artists, and let us know who you want to see us chat with next.